Everyone, today I'm going to have my seminar on feminism. This workshop will be divided into 4 main parts: explanation of key wordings and introduction of feminism, and general questions, specific news and points from the required readings, and the 5 questions. Okay. People always talk about feminism, but what is it actually? Feminism aims to define and establish the political, economic, personal, and social equality of the sexes by different social or political movements. Feminism is about having equal rights and opportunities for all genders, no matter what gender they are or what sexual orientation they have. For me, as a female, this is a great term and phenomenon, or even atmosphere for me to say that females should also enjoy the same rights with male. Feminism is an ideology and a set of thinking to support gender equality. Feminism is not talking about how should people be man-hated and how unique women are, but gender equality, fair and justice. Feminism is not a new term for the public and media, and it has its history. Or I can say that this is an evolution of people's ways of thinking and acting. Feminism was in the past, present, and the future. The picture is showing the women's liberation groups marches in protest and supporting of Black Panther Party in November 1969. Half decades later, in January 2020, the Women's March is still holding. Although the event is still there, the aim and wishes may change from time to time as the decades is also changing. There are some general questions from the public. Do feminists hate men actually? I will have to say the answer is definitely not. Feminism is not man-hating. What feminism against are the system that is injustice and unfair phenomena. For example, in the past, we often heard some news talking about women getting less salary than men, as a stereotype of men is stronger than women was still existing. People are more willing to pay money and hire male rather than female, as they agree that male are more useful and helpful. It seems to tell that women are not as strong as or as useful as men, so they deserve less salary. Feminists again agree that this is not fair and the public did not pay respect to women. So why will we suffer from this kind of unfair? If do not means that feminists would hate men or should hate men. Everyone is equal, and we should all have the same rights to do the same thing, but not boring by anything that blind with our own gender. The second question is does a feminist have to be a woman? I agree that it depends on how you treat yourself as a woman. For anyone who identifies themselves as a female or even transgender, it's fine. They have their own rights to become a feminist. It brings us to the next part of the seminar, the news and the readings. These readings were cited from the online learning website, and they are all about feminism. Although their main topics are the same, the author has different stances and point of view which I inspired a lot from all of them. This news is interesting and easy to understand. Feminist current popularity is a dream come true. Some people may say that they are feminists because they have common values like gender equality as other feminists. So, everyone is a feminist. Is anyone? Is feminist just as simple as just talking about gender justice? The first reading I would like to introduce is Finding a Place in History, the discursive legacy of the Wave Metaphor and Contemporary Feminist by Joe Reger, 2017. This article is so integrated and comprehensive as the author talks about waves of feminism, presentism, sexual identities, historical complexity of feminism, the protests of disaggregations, feminist free zone, etc. Waves of feminism means the wave and the atmosphere of the society at that time, who have vision on being a feminist or supporting feminism. It is a set of ideas. Reagan mentioned about three waves, which are around early 20th century from 1900 to 1959 for the first wave, 1960s to 1980s for the second wave, and 1990s to 2000 for the third wave. In the first wave, people aimed on women's suffrage, property rights, and political candidacy. They would like to have their rights to vote and get some ways to express their opinion on social issues and political issues. In the second wave, people aim to reduce inequalities in sex, workplace, family, reproductive rights, inequalities, and official legal inequalities. And in the third wave, they were focusing on changing culture, everyday activism, embracing individualism and diversity. Some people agree that the fourth wave is still existing from 2008 until now, which they fight for the sexual harassment, assault, and misconduct. Second wave is important for feminists. According to Reagan 2017, second wave feminism state an ideological claim to the idea of wave of activism, following another wave of activism. Waves as a metaphor become a discursive legacy that allowed feminists to understand that they were a part of history, and this history incorporates a set of beliefs and an identity labeled as feminist by both the movement and the public. Waves are annoying and it is complicated. So why should people divide them into different stages? Dividing wages into categorizations such as daughter and mother, young and old, or employee and boss relationships can promote the idea of an intergenerational tension. Feminist generations are important as it can coexist. The wave metaphor, embedded in popular culture, overstated differences between waves and becoming a source of intergenerational dissensions. According to Reagan 2017, racial ethnic and class homogeneity have been issues in the women's movement, shaping the claiming of a feminist identity. Reagan also mentioned that some scholars find that women of color often qualify their feminism because of racism within the women's movement, and particularly women's movement organizations, which we can conclude that racism can increase their motivation on feminism. The past generation mostly focused on institutional gains and struggles and did not deal with racism and white privilege. According to Reagan, in this generation, the feminists understand the past and argue that they are taking a different approach by focusing on the cultural, personal, and everyday. Feminists seems more to be personal action rather than in a group. Looking back into the past, feminists of that time fits with what women wanted. And now, in this generation, we have more multicultural wants and feminism will change to fulfill our wants and needs. To conclude with this article by Rega's small paragraph, which is sitting around and crafting, but at the same time being critical and trying to change things. Feminists should think critical to deal with their wants and demands. Are they fit with the generation we are staying? So, we should think critical. The second reading is What's in a Name? On Writing the History of Feminism by Claire Morse, 2020. It includes races and classes, woman-hating, victim-blaming, anti-poor discourses, women groups and feminism, class and feminism, feminism benefits, media, history, and feminism. So what is feminist? In Western Europe and the Americans, historians typically use the word feminist to describe women's collective activities to advance women's condition. We should think about, are all women's groups are feminists? What makes them a feminist or not? Schellinger defined feminists as those who defend the causes of women and believe in the moral and spiritual equality of the sexes. Moses mentioned about class prejudice and feminism, which class prejudice divide the feminists. It is also good for us to think about what are the meanings of equality for the feminists. Women calling themselves feminists discussed endlessly and disagreed profoundly about the meaning of equality, the relationship of femininity to feminism, and the role of maternity and waged work in the lives of an pleated woman. Some feminists gave priority to sexuality or issue of reproduction. Some gave priority to work-related issue, and some called for a socialist revolution. Some defended capitalism. These reforms were included with women in capitalism's benefits. On another level, some may believe that women had been socialized differently from men and in ways that disempowered them. They are naturally different from, and perhaps even more excellent than men, especially in their capacity for interpersonal relationships. Time flies and technology improves. Social media play an important role in promoting feminism as more and more people are involved in social networks. Social media includes newspaper, news online like The Guardian, poster and advertisement, TV shows and programs, and even books can be a media to spread the idea of feminism. According to Morse 2017, Feminism's History and Women's History, and find that the period in which our gains were most striking were when we used the word feminism most broadly, imbuing it with multiple meanings, and thereby created the largest sense of belonging, a shared aspiration for women's empowerment. To conclude, we can quote a small paragraph from Moses. Feminism has had different meanings to different people in different times and places. that we must allow these different meanings to emerge to address the needs and priorities of women in their context, that feminism can never define sexism as the only oppressive force in women's lives. And the last part, the question time. I've prepared 5 questions and I'll try to explain question 3 and 5. The first question: how should or can people determine feminism if the term did not exist? How should people understand the meaning of feminism by different social and political events? Question 2. What are the differences between feminism in 1970s and present feminism in terms of their ways of expression and their ideology? Question 3. What are the differences between the first wave, second wave, and the third wave? How does the wavers shape the identities of feminists in the first wave compared to the second wave? The main aim of the wavers are different. Feminists aim to have the rights to vote in the first wave, reproductive rights in the second wave, and changing culture and everyday activism in the third wave. As Moses says, feminism has different meaning to different people in different time and spaces. In the past, which is the first wave, and the second wave, people are to emphasis on policy gains, which is political, which has aimed in changing the situation and the atmosphere in society. However, in the third wave, people focus on racism and culture, which is more related to personal aspects. The shapes of identity in the third wave may be more deeper than the second wave and the first wave as individually. Question 4. What are feminist free songs? How does these free songs affect feminists? Question 5. How does media help with shaping the ideology of feminists and the identity of a feminist? In this case, I can make Facebook as an example. People watch news through Facebook evenly, and there must be some news reporting on gender equality. We seldom heard news about sexual harassment on female by male. I do not mean that male are horrible or being man-hating, but gender equality no matter you are male or female. It is about justice and fair. This kind of news will invoke the resentment from the feminists or people who believe in feminism and increase their sense of belongings to their beliefs, which is feminism. Some people may say, we, as a feminist, should stand up and speak out for what we need and what we should have, which this action is shaping their ideology and identity for the feminists. It comes to the end of my seminar, and thank you for listening.